You know, there's a very specific version of Hans Christian Andersen that lives in all of our heads.
Oh, yeah.
It's usually Danny Kaye, right?
Yeah.
In that old Technicolor movie singing Wonderful, Wonderful Copenhagen.
Absolutely. Dancing around.
Yeah, dancing around with a bunch of happy kids, spinning these innocent little yarns about ducklings and mermaids. He's this sanitized, grandfatherly, almost Santa Claus-like figure.
It's the Disney version. It really is. It's safe, it's cozy,
Right.
and it's completely manufactured.
And that's the thing. It's not just wrong. It's almost the exact opposite of the truth. I was reading through this new translation by Marte Hoffem-Holt and looking at the commentary by Jack Zipes.
A fantastic source.
It really is. And I have to say, the real Andersen is, well, he's terrifying. He's neurotic. He's bitter. He's obsessed with social climbing. And his stories, they are not bedtime stories.
No.
They are primal screams.
They really are. When you strip away all those, those Victorian translations that tried to make him appropriate for the nursery.
Yeah, to clean him up.
To clean him up, exactly. You find an author who is arguably more Kafka than Disney. I mean, Zipes calls him a mythomaniac, which I think is just the perfect descriptor.
Mythomaniac.
Yeah. Andersen didn't just write fairy tales. He treated his own life as a fairy tale that he had to, forcefully edit to hide the trauma.
Mythomaniac is such a heavy label, though. It implies, like, a pathological need to lie.
Well, in Andersen's case, I think it was a pathological need to survive.
Mm-hmm.
You have to understand the gap between who he was and who he wanted to be was.
Mm.
It was so wide, it could have swallowed him whole.
Okay.
So he sold this narrative, this story of the poor boy with the golden heart who succeeds because God loves him. But the source material, it shows us a man who was calculating, deeply narcissistic, a hypochondriac, and just plagued by a darkness that he barely kept at bay.
And that's the mission today, really. We aren't here to ruin anyone's childhood.
Not the goal.
No. But we are here to deconstruct that Danny Kaye illusion. We need to look at the stories that usually get cut from the compilations, the ones about, political manipulation, the cruelty of critics, the sheer agony of being an artist. Because when you look at stories like The Will-o'-the-Wisps Are in Town or The Shadow,
Oh, yeah.
you realize Andersen wasn't writing for 1840s children. He was writing about 2020's problems.
He absolutely was. He was writing about fake news, about the vanity of the elite, and about the struggle to maintain your identity in a world that wants to turn you into a commodity.
It is.
Yeah.
It's shockingly modern stuff.
So let's go back to the source of that myth. You mentioned Zipes calls him a mythomaniac because he edited his own life. But what was he covering up? Because the ugly duckling narrative, the poor bird who becomes a swan, that's basically his autobiography, isn't it?
It's the autobiography he wanted to be true. But the reality of Odense, where he was born in 1805, wasn't just humble.
It was destitute and traumatic. We aren't talking about some cozy little shoemaker's cottage. We're talking about a single room where his father, a shoemaker, read to him, sure. But that father was also a deeply broken man.
The sources mention his father served in the Napoleonic Wars.
And that is such a key detail that often gets glossed over. He didn't go for glory or patriotism. He went as a paid substitute.
So a rich kid got drafted, and his family paid Andersen's father to go instead.
Exactly. In those days, if a rich man's son got drafted, he could pay a poor man to go in his place. So Andersen's father took the money, went to war, saw the absolute horrors of the collapse of the Napoleonic dream, and he came back physically and mentally shattered. He died young, leaving the family with absolutely nothing.
His mother, what was her story?
She was an illiterate washerwoman. You have to picture what that meant back then. I mean, standing in freezing river water all day, scrubbing clothes for the gentry.
Brutal work.
Brutal. She eventually drank herself to death. She was superstitious, fearful, and just.
Yeah.
She succumbed to alcoholism. And there's the aunt.
Ah, the aunt who ran a brothel.
Right. So you have a family history of insanity, prostitution, alcoholism, and extreme grinding poverty. This is the mud that the ugly duckling is trying to paddle out of. It's not just that he was awkward.
No.
It's that he was terrified of his own genetic legacy. He was terrified he would go mad like his grandfather or end up an alcoholic like his mother.
So when he leaves for Copenhagen at 14, it's not just ambition. It's a full-on escape attempt.
It's a flight for survival. Completely.
No.
He shows up in the capital with no money, no connections, and this bizarre, unshakable conviction that he is going to be famous. And he's this tall, gangly, strange-looking kid with a high-pitched voice.
Right.
And he starts knocking on doors of the elite, basically singing and dancing for supper.
It sounds excruciatingly awkward.
It had to be. But you know what? It worked. He managed to charm, or maybe more accurately, exhaust the people in power until they took him in. And this is where Jonas Collin comes into the picture.
The director of the Royal Theatre.
That's him. And he essentially adopts Andersen as a kind of project.
But it wasn't a warm, fatherly adoption, was it? The notes describe it more like a retooling.
Exactly. That's the perfect word. They look at this raw, uneducated, lower-class talent and decided they needed to fix him to make him presentable.
So they sent him to school.
They sent him to a grammar school in Slagles. Now imagine this. He's a teenager, he's already published a little bit, and he's put in a class with 11-year-olds.
Oh, that's humiliating.
It's pure humiliation.
Yeah.
And the headmaster, Meisling, he was a sadist. He mocked Andersen constantly, called him stupid, forbade him from writing poetry.
That's the duckling in the barnyard being pecked at by everyone?
It was, pure and simple. But Andersen, he took it. He endured it because he knew that without the education, without the stamp of approval from the Collin family, he would never be accepted by society. He would just be the washerwoman's son.
This desperation to belong, it just bleeds into his relationships, too. I think we have to talk about the sexuality aspect because for a long time, biographers just sort of ignored it.
They swept it under the rug.
But Zepes is pretty clear that Andersen's romantic life was complicated.
Complicated is putting it mildly. He fell in love constantly, and usually with people he couldn't have. Reborg Voigt, Louise Collin, the famous singer Jenny Lind.
The Swedish Nightingale.
The Swedish Nightingale, yeah. He proposed to them, they rejected him, he turned the pain into art. But the most significant relationship, and the one that really, I think, unlocks the dark psychology of his work, was with Edward Collin.
Jonas's son. The son of his patron.
Right. And Andersen was clearly in love with Edward. He wrote him these letters that were incredibly intimate, just begging for a connection. He wanted a soulmate. And Edward, he was pragmatist, a proper bourgeois gentleman. He not only rejected the romantic overture, he did something that I think broke Andersen's heart more than any breakup ever could.
The pronoun thing.
The pronoun thing, yeah. In Danish, like in a lot of languages, there's a formal you, which is D, and informal you, which is do. You use do with family, with close friends.
It's a sign of intimacy.
A huge sign. And Andersen begged Edward, can we please say do to each other? He wanted that equality. He wanted to be a brother or more, and Edward just said no.
That is just so cold.
With a slap in the face. It was Edward saying, I will help you. I will manage your finances, but you are not my equal. You are the charity case.
And this leads directly into The Shadow. I read that story for this deep dive, and honestly, it gave me chills. It's not a fairy tale at all. It's a psychological horror story.
It is Andersen's revenge fantasy and his suicide note all rolled into one. Yeah. It's unbelievable. You have a learned man, who is obviously the Andersen figure, who sends his shadow across the street to see what's in a beautiful house.
And the shadow just detaches.
It detaches, enters the house, and comes back years later.
Yeah.
But now the shadow is a rich, fat, successful man in a suit.
And the learned man, the original man, is sick and poor.
Precisely. The shadow has seen the world. It knows how to blackmail, how to manipulate, how to climb the social ladder. The learned man just cares about the good, the true, and the beautiful, but nobody listens to him. And slowly, the roles reverse. The shadow convinces the learned man to travel with him as his shadow.
That inversion is terrifying. The authentic self becoming the servant of the artificial persona he created.
And then you get to the ending. I mean, the shadow marries a princess, and the princess asks, why is your shadow, meaning the learned man, so thin and sick? And the shadow says, oh, he's just crazy. He thinks he's a human.
Oh, my God.
So to solve the problem, they execute the learned man.
They kill him.
They kill him. The shadow survives. The fake, manipulative social climber wins the girl and the kingdom. The true artist is executed. Andersen wrote this right after the rejection from Edward. He's acknowledging that to survive in this Collin world, he has to kill his true self and let the shadow, the public persona, the sycophant, take over.
Wow. That recontextualizes everything. He wasn't just quirky. He was a man who felt he was being erased by the very people who were supposed to be helping him. And that theme, the authentic versus the artificial, it's everywhere. It's the central spine of The Nightingale.
Oh, absolutely. The Nightingale is often read as this sweet little story about a bird, but it is a biting, vicious satire of the Copenhagen cultural elite.
It starts with the Emperor of China. And I love the description of his palace. It's made entirely of porcelain, so brittle, so fragile, that one had to take care not to touch it.
Yeah.
That's not a compliment. That's a design flaw.
It's ridiculous. It perfectly represents the fragility of the court's ego And the emperor is so detached from reality that he doesn't even know there's a nightingale in his own forest until he reads about it in a book sent by the Emperor of Japan.
That is such a sharp jab. He trusts a foreign book more than his own eyes and ears. So the court goes hunting for this bird, and this scene is hilarious. The courtiers are, trudging through the mud,
Complaining the whole time.
and they hear a cow moo, and one of the lords says, "Oh, what a powerful voice. That must be the nightingale."
It's just, it shows they have zero connection to nature. None. They mistake a cow for a songbird, then they mistake frogs for church bells. These are the supposed experts who dictate taste, and they are complete idiots.
And when they finally find the bird, the chamberlain is disappointed. He says, "It looks so plain because it's just a little gray bird. It doesn't look like art to them."
Right, but it sings, and the emperor cries. For just a moment, the authentic breaks through. But then, the box arrives.
The artificial bird.
The new toy.
It was studded with diamonds, rubies, and sapphires. It's pure bling.
It's technology. It's the shiny new gadget. And the music master, who is clearly a stand-in for the music critics Andersen hated, makes this fascinating argument. He says the artificial bird is better than the real one.
Why?
Because it's predictable.
One can explain it. One can open it up and show the human thought how the cylinders are placed.
Think about that. He prefers the mechanical because he can control it. The real bird is wild. It sings differently every time. The mechanical bird sings the same waltz 33 times without getting tired. And the court loves it because they can memorize it and sing along.
It's the 19th century equivalent of, I don't know, favoring an auto-tuned pop track over a live jazz improvisation because the jazz might get messy.
Exactly. It's the commodification of art. But Andersen doesn't let them get away with it. The machine breaks, the gears wear out. And then we get that scene, which I think is one of the darkest in all of fairy tale literature, where the emperor is dying.
This scene kept me up at night as a kid. I remember it vividly. The emperor is lying there, pale and cold, and death is sitting on his chest.
Wearing the emperor's crown, holding the emperor's sword. It's this heavy, suffocating image. And the room is filled with spirits, the emperor's good and bad deeds, staring at him. And the emperor is just screaming at the artificial bird, "Sing, sing, ground them out."
But the bird sits silent. There was no one to wind it up.
It has no soul. It cannot function without a user. It is completely useless in the face of actual existential dread. And that's when the real nightingale flies in through the window.
And it saves him.
It does. But it doesn't sing a happy song. It sings about the quiet churchyard, the white roses, the elder trees. It sings about the peace of death.
And it's so beautiful that death essentially trades the crown for the song and just leaves. The bird saves him. But here's the thing that really strikes me. The bird refuses to come live in the palace.
It makes a deal.
It does. It says, "I will sit on a green bough by your window. I will sing of the happy and those who suffer. I will sing of the evil and the good that is hidden from you."
And that is the manifesto. That's Andersen saying, the artist cannot be a pet. The artist cannot be kept in a cage or made of diamonds. The artist's job is to fly out into the mud, see the suffering, see the truth, and bring it back to the emperor, even if the emperor doesn't want to hear it.
It's a declaration of independence, which is so ironic because in real life, Andersen was so incredibly dependent on his emperors, on the patrons.
He was. And he resented it. If you want to see just how much he resented it, you have to look at the gardener and the gentry. This story is basically a subtweet of the Collin family. It's unbelievable.
It's incredibly passive-aggressive, and I just love it. You have this aristocratic family with a brilliant gardener, Larsen. And Larsen produces these miracles, huge strawberries, amazing melons. And the family eats them, they enjoy them, but they never give Larsen credit.
In fact, they actively doubt him. There's that scene with the apples and pears. The family dines with the king, and they eat these incredible fruits. They come home and tell Larsen, "You have to get us graphs of these fruits we had at court."
And what does he say?
Larsen just looks at them and says, "I bought them from our own orchard. They are yours."
And they don't believe him. They make the greengrocer write a signed note certifying that the apples came from Larsen. They need a piece of paper to tell them that what they already have is good.
It's the prophet in his own land syndrome. They can't believe that something growing in their dirt, tended by their servant, could possibly be world class. It's only valuable if the king says it's valuable.
But the ultimate insult, the ultimate example of this is the blue lotus.
The artichoke. This is just genius. Larsen brings in this stunning blue flower, and the family assumes it's the lotus of Hindustan. They treat it like a crown jewel. They show it off to the young princess who's visiting.
And then they find out.
It's just the flower of an artichoke, a vegetable from the garden.
And they are mortified. They apologize to the princess. Oh, forgive us, we didn't know it was a vegetable. They are so obsessed with status that they can't see the beauty right in front of them because it's common.
But the princess, who represents true nobility, real class, she says, no, it's magnificent. The gardener has opened our eyes. Andersen is Larsen. He's the guy taking the common stuff, folk tales, the Danish language, simple stories, and making high art out of them. And the Danish critics, the gentry, are embarrassed by him because he's not writing serious academic literature like they do in Germany.
Yeah, there's a line where the family says, we barely feel we can tolerate him, but we have to be proud we have him. That is the most backhanded compliment in history.
It's exactly how Andersen felt he was treated. You're useful to us, so we'll keep you around, but don't you dare think you're one of us.
So we have the personal angst in The Gardener, we have the cultural satire in The Nightingale, but then we get to a story that I think is the most relevant for our current moment. The will-o'-the-wisps are in town.
Yeah.
This isn't just about art anymore, this is about truth itself.
This story is arguably the most important one in the entire collection for a modern reader. It was written in 1865, after Denmark had lost this disastrous war, and Andersen was watching the world change. He was watching the rise of mass media, or at least the 19th century version of it, and he was terrified.
The premise is almost like an episode of Black Mirror. You have a man who is seeking a fairy tale, and he meets the bog witch. And she invites him into the bog to show him her bottled poetry.
And this bottled poetry is pure, unadulterated satire. She has these bottles on the shelf. One is the Scandal Flagon. She says it's made of dirty water and fizz powder of city chatter.
That is social media. That is Twitter or X or whatever it is now. That is the viral outrage cycle in a bottle.
It is. It's gossip weaponized. Then she has pious poetry, which sounds holy but is actually made of the blood and sweat of punishment. It's hypocrisy distilled. But the real danger isn't in the bottles. It's the will-o'-the-wisps.
Now, in folklore, will-o'-the-wisps are these little lights that lead travelers off the path to drown in the marshes, but Andersen gives them a very specific job description.
They are agents of chaos. The bog witch explains that a brood of 12 has just been born, and they have a game. They can take human form for 1 year, and their goal, their win condition, is to lead 365 people astray from the truth.
And if they do that,
they get the highest honor. They get to run in front of the devil's coach wearing a glowing orange uniform.
a glowing orange uniform. I'm not even going to touch that symbolism with a 10-foot pole, but the objective is clear. Chaos, misinformation. And the scary part is their disguise.
They can be anyone. The bog witch literally lists the roles they take. They can be a minister, a general, a politician, an artist. They are shapeshifters. They enter society specifically to erode the boundary between truth and lies.
This feels like a direct commentary on demagoguery.
It is. 100%. Andersen is warning us that there are actors in the public sphere who do not care about the country or the truth. They only care about the game. They care about leading people into the swamp. They are trolls, essentially, 19th century trolls.
And the bog witch tells the man, the poet, to go warn the town. She says, the will-o'-the-wisps are in town. Watch out.
But, and here is the cynicism of the older Andersen, she knows it won't work. She says, they won't listen. They will think it's just a fairy tale.
Wow, that hits hard. We are told constantly, check your sources, watch out for deepfakes, don't feed the trolls. And we do it anyway. Andersen predicted the fatigue of the truth seeker.
He realized that the lie is often more entertaining than the truth. The will-o'-the-wisps are shiny. They are exciting. The truth is often boring, like the real nightingale. And people will follow that shiny light right into the mud.
It makes you wonder who the will-o'-the-wisps are in our feeds right now. But let's shift gears to another form of fake that Andersen obsessed over. The fake artist. Or maybe more accurately, the difference between doing something and just talking about something. We have the story Something, sometimes called The Five Brothers.
This is a fantastic little parable about ambition.
Yeah.
5 brothers, all pledged to be something in the world. And the first brother is humble. He wants to make bricks.
Not a very glorious career choice.
No, but a necessary one. He says, bricks are essential. That is something. The other brothers, of course, they mock him. The second becomes a mason. The third, an architect. The fourth, a genius inventor. They all climb higher and higher in status.
And then there's the fifth brother, the critic.
The critic is the villain of the piece, really. He says, I see what you all do, and I will judge it. I will find the faults. That makes me superior to you.
Yeah.
And Andersen writes that he was the most respected of them all. People say, he has a good head. He just sat in the corner and tore everyone else down.
But then they die. And Andersen gives us a glimpse of the afterlife.
The pearly gates. The critic steps up, expecting, VIP treatment. But he's just left standing there.
Yeah.
He has nothing in his hands. He never made anything.
And the humble brickmaker.
He gets in. And you know why? Because a poor woman, Mother Margaret, whose life was saved during a flood because her hovel was built with his strong bricks, prays for him. His work had a tangible, positive impact on a human life. The Genius brothers, their towers collapsed. The architect, his buildings were fine. But the critic, he's empty.
It's a brutal takedown of the intellectual class that Andersen felt excluded from. He's saying, you can write all the reviews you want, but I'm the one making the bricks. I'm the one building the house.
It's the man in the arena speech, decades before Teddy Roosevelt gave it. It really is.
But Andersen also warned about what happens when you have talent, but you squander it on ego. And that brings us to The Flying Trunk.
A tragedy disguised as a comedy. It starts so fun. The merchant's son inherits a bunch of money, spends it all, and is left with a magical trunk that can fly. He flies to Turkey, which is a standard Orientalist trope of the time, and he woos a princess.
And he woos her with stories, which is Andersen's superpower, right?
Exactly. He tells his charming story about a box of matches. The royal family loves it. They arrange the wedding. He has one. He has the girl, the kingdom, the magic trunk. But he can't leave well enough alone.
He needs to flex.
He needs to flex. He buys thousands of fireworks. He flies up into the night sky to create this massive spectacle to show everyone how powerful he is. I'm the dragon god sort of energy.
And the trunk catches fire.
A spark from the fireworks. The trunk burns to ash. He falls to the ground. He survives, but his magic is gone. He can never fly back to the princess, and she is left waiting on the roof, looking at the sky forever.
And he wanders the world telling stories, but the text says they are no longer so lighthearted.
He becomes a bitter, washed-up hack. It's a warning about hubris. If you use your gift just to show off, just to feed your ego, you will burn the vehicle that got you there. You'll be left in the dirt.
Speaking of the vehicle of art inspiration, there's a funny little story called The Pixie and the Gardener's Wife that I think touches on how we misunderstand where ideas come from.
This is a nice little palate cleanser, but it's still pretty sharp. The gardener's wife is learned. She writes poetry, and she writes a poem called Little Pixie.
And there is an actual pixie-ness living in the house, a little household spirit. And he overhears the poem and thinks, she loves me, she understands me.
But she doesn't even know he exists. She's using Pixie as a metaphor for the spirit of inspiration. But the pixie is so vain, he takes it literally. So he stops playing pranks, stops stealing the cat's milk, and starts watching over her because he thinks he's being worshipped.
It's a total comedy of errors. The muse thinks the artist loves him, but the artist is just using the muse as a concept.
It suggests that art is often a happy accident of misunderstanding. The pixie rewards her, so her life gets better, which makes her write more poetry. And it's a feedback loop based on a total lack of communication.
But what happens when that loop breaks? What happens when you can't write? There's another story called What One Can Think Up that feels like Andersen directly addressing writer's block.
It really does. It's about a young man who wants to be a writer by Easter. He sets this deadline for himself, but he has no ideas. He says, everything has been written. The ancients stole all the good plots.
A complaint I hear every single day on Reddit.
He goes to a wise woman, and she just mocks him. She picks up a potato. She says, there's a story in this potato. And she talks about its origin in the Andes, how it came to Europe, how it saved populations from famine, how it suffered rot.
She's saying the world is fractally interesting. Every single object holds a saga.
If you have the eyes to see it. She shows him a blackthorn bush, a beehive, but the young man just stares. He doesn't have the hearing or the heart to decode the world. He just wants the fame of being a writer.
So what's her solution? This is the kicker.
She says, if you can't create, become a critic. She tells him to buy a pair of glasses and a pot of glue, smack the glue on the poets, cut them up, criticize them. You'll get money and respect.
And he does it. And he succeeds.
Again, Andersen with the knife twist. The establishment, in his view, is run by people who failed to be artists themselves.
That brings us to what might be my favorite, the most incredible thing. If the shadow is the psychological low point, I feel like this story is the artistic high point. It's about the resilience of art against violence.
It's a stunning story. The king holds a contest. Whoever does the most incredible thing wins the princess. A young artist spends years building a clock.
But not just a clock, it's more like a mechanical theater.
It's a masterpiece. At 1 o'clock, Moses stands on Mount Sinai. At 2, Adam and Eve appear in paradise. At 3, the three kings. It cycles through the seasons, the senses. It ends at midnight with the night watchman singing a hymn. It's a compendium of human history and faith.
The people are just awestruck. They say, this is it. This is the incredible thing. But then the brute steps forward.
A big, muscular guy with an axe. He looks at this delicate, beautiful machine, and he swings the axe. Smash! He destroys it completely. Gears fly everywhere. It's a pile of junk.
And he turns to the judges and says, to destroy such a masterpiece? Surely that is even more incredible than building it.
And the judges, being these bureaucratic idiots, they agree. They say, technically, he's right. The destruction was shocking. It was incredible in the literal sense, so he wins.
That is blood boiling. It's the triumph of the vandal. It's every time a beautiful building is torn down for a parking lot. It's barbarism winning on a technicality.
The wedding is set. The brute is going to marry the princess. The church doors open. But then the miracle happens. The art fights back.
The spirits of the clock figures return.
The ghosts of the machine, Moses, Adam, the watchman, they march into the church. But they aren't little clockwork figures anymore. They are giants. They are the concepts themselves. Moses is terrifying, and he smashes them down.
The spirit of the work cannot be killed.
That is the message. You can burn the book, you can smash the clock, you can execute the playwright, but the idea, the art, is immortal. It will come back, and it will haunt you. It is a fiercely optimistic ending in a very, very violent story.
It's Andersen telling himself, they can mock me, they can reject me, but my work will outlive them all.
And he was right. I mean, we don't remember the critics who mocked him. We don't remember the gentry who ate his melons and didn't appreciate them. We remember Andersen.
But there is one last story we have to cover, and it brings us right back down to earth with a thud. Anti-toothache.
Ah, yes. The story found in the grease-stained butter wrapper.
It's so weirdly postmodern. The narrator finds a manuscript in the trash at the grocer's, and it's the story of a writer who is tormented by a toothache.
But not just pain. The toothache is personified. Madame Toothache. She visits him at night. It's a complete fever dream.
She's like a demon. She played the piano on his teeth.
And she makes him a deal. The writer wants to be a great poet. He wants to suffer for his art, because that's the romantic ideal, right? Madame Toothache says, okay, I'll stop the pain. But you have to admit that a toothache is more powerful than poetry. You have to admit that when you are in real physical pain, you are nothing.
And he breaks. He admits it. Yes, the toothache is greater than the art.
It's a devastating confession. It cuts through all the romanticism. Andersen is saying, I can write about spirits and nightingales and eternal art, but when my body hurts, when the physical reality of decay sets in, I am just a scared little animal.
It grounds everything. It reminds us that he was a hypochondriac, terrified of his own body. And the story ends abruptly because...
Because the rest of the manuscript was used to wrap cheese and herring. The great art ends up as trash.
Yeah.
It's Andersen laughing at his own legacy. Ashes to ashes, dust to herring wrappers.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. We've seen the mythomaniac who lied about his past, the social climber who was rejected by his own shadow, the satirist who mocked the artificiality of the court, the believer in the indestructible spirit of art, and the man terrified of a toothache.
It is a massive, complex mosaic. He isn't the Danny Kaye figure. He is the nightingale singing the dark truth to the emperor. He is the gardener growing miracles that the elite ignore. And he's in the man looking for a fairy tale in a world full of will-o'-the-wisps.
And that brings us back to the question of today. If Andersen were alive now, scrolling through his phone,
he would recognize everything. He would see the artificial birds, the AI art, the auto-tune music, and see how safe and predictable it all is. He would see the gentry ignoring the real problems to obsess over status.
and he would see the will-o'-the-wisps.
The influencers, the bots, the politicians in their glowing orange uniforms leading us all into the swamp.
So the challenge for you listening is this. Can you spot them? Who are the will-o'-the-wisps in your feed right now? And when you hear a song, are you checking to see if it's a machine with cylinders, or are you listening for the real nightingale?
Because the real song might make you cry, but it's the only one that can scare death away.
And on that cheerful note, go read the real stories. They're worth the nightmares. Thanks for diving deep.
A pleasure.